The rain hammered against the corrugated metal roof of the settlement outpost, each drop a reminder that Kepler 442b was nothing like the paradise the recruitment hollows had promised. Adam stood at the entrance of his prefab shelter, one hand resting on the doorframe, the other hanging loose at his side, though anyone who knew him well enough could see the tension coiled in those weathered fingers, ready to reach for a weapon that wasn't there anymore. The figure approaching through the downpour was unmistakable even at a distance. The Drakari were impossible to miss, even on a frontier world where strange had become commonplace. 7 feet of scaled elegance, wings folded tight against her back to shield against the rain, membranes stretched thin enough that the settlement lights shone through them like stained glass windows. Her crest, that distinctive crown of swept-back horns that marked her as nobility among her kind, caught what little light pierced the storm clouds. "You're a long way from the contested zones, Lady Orla," Adam called out, his voice carrying that particular flatness that veterans acquired after seeing too many ceasefires break. "Navigation error or something worse?" The Drakari woman stopped just outside the shelter's overhang, rain streaming off her scales in rivulets. Up close, Adam could see the signs he'd been trained to recognize during the war: the dulled sheen of malnutrition, the tremor in the wing joints that spoke of exhaustion, and something else, something in those golden reptilian eyes that he recognized from his own mirror on bad nights. "Worse, human," Orla said, her voice a throaty rasp that the translator chip rendered with aristocratic precision. "Much worse. The contested zones are no longer contested. They belong to the Imperium now, and those of us who spoke for peace." She gestured to herself with a taloned hand. "We are no longer welcome anywhere." Adam studied her for a long moment, rain beginning to splash onto his boots. Behind him, from deeper in the shelter, he heard the shuffle of small feet and whispered giggles. His daughters, supposed to be asleep, but inevitably drawn to anything unusual. Sarah was 8, Emma barely 6, both still young enough to think their father was invincible, old enough to remember when their mother had been there to prove he wasn't. "You fought in the Meridian campaign," Orla said, not a question. Her eyes had caught the faded unit insignia on his jacket hanging by the door. "3rd Human Expeditionary. I commanded an advisory wing attached to that operation. You're the Dragon Lady." Adam's jaw tightened. "The one who called the ceasefire at Meridian Station. Saved about 3,000 human Marines from getting vaporized when your fleet could have glassed the whole platform. I made enemies in my own command for that decision. They said I was weak, corrupted by human sentimentality." Orla's crest lowered slightly, a gesture Adam had learned meant resignation. Perhaps they were right. A proper Drakari would have prioritized strategic advantage over the lives of enemy soldiers who still sent letters home to their children. "Papa?" Sarah's voice came from behind him, small and uncertain. "Who's that?" Adam turned to see both his daughters peering around the corner, Emma clutching her worn stuffed rabbit, Sarah with that too serious expression she'd worn ever since the accident. Since the transport crash that had taken their mother 2 years ago, leaving Adam to raise them alone on this frontier rock while trying to forget the war and everything he'd done in it. "Just a visitor, sweetheart," he said, then made a decision that probably made him 7 kinds of fool. "She needs shelter from the storm." He stepped back, opening the door wider. Orla stared at him, those golden eyes widening in what might have been shock. "You would shelter me? After everything our peoples have—" "Yeah, well, maybe I'm corrupted by sentimentality, too." Adam managed something that wasn't quite a smile. "Besides, you saved my unit at Meridian. I was there, in that station. Would have died with the rest of them if you hadn't ordered your ships to stand down." Orla moved into the shelter slowly, carefully folding her wings to fit through the doorway. The space suddenly felt much smaller with a Drakari inside, but the warmth was immediate, the shelter's climate systems pushing back against the storm's chill. Sarah and Emma stared up at the dragon woman with wide eyes. To Adam's surprise, it wasn't fear in their expressions, it was wonder. "You're so pretty," Emma whispered, then clapped a hand over her mouth as if she'd said something wrong. Orla's crest rose slightly, a flush of color spreading across her scales, the Drakari equivalent of a blush, Adam remembered. Thank you, small one." "Girls, get back to bed," Adam said gently. "We'll talk in the morning." But Sarah didn't move. She was staring at Orla with that analytical expression that sometimes made Adam forget she was only 8. "Are you sad?" she asked. "You look like Papa does when he thinks we're asleep." The shelter fell silent except for the rain's percussion overhead. Orla slowly lowered herself to one knee, bringing her eyes level with Sarah's. "Yes," she said simply. "I am very sad. I have lost my home, my position, and my purpose. I do not know where I belong anymore." "Papa says everyone belongs somewhere," Sarah said with the absolute certainty of childhood. "He says Mama used to tell him that." Adam felt something twist in his chest. He moved to the small kitchen area, needing to do something with his hands. "You hungry, Lady Orla?" "I've got ration packs that can handle non-human metabolisms." "Just Orla," she said, still kneeling by his daughters. "I am no longer a lady of anything." She paused, then added softly, "And yes, I have not eaten in several days." As Adam heated the rations, he watched his daughters circle around Orla with the fearless curiosity unique to children. Emma was explaining the names of all her stuffed animals. Sarah was asking questions about Drakari wings and whether Orla could really breathe fire. She could, but only a little, Orla explained with surprising patience. For the first time since Maria's death, the shelter felt less like a bunker and more like a home. When he brought the food over, Adam found himself speaking words he hadn't planned. "The settlement's always looking for skilled people, doesn't matter what species, long as you can pull your weight. Administrator's actually human-friendly. Probably wouldn't mind a Drakari if she came recommended by a resident." Orla looked up at him, a piece of ration bar frozen halfway to her mouth. "You would sponsor me? We are practically strangers." "You need shelter," Adam said, echoing the title that had brought her here. He glanced at his daughters, both now leaning against Orla's sides like she was a warm, scaled couch. "And my daughters." He paused, the words harder than he expected. "They need someone who isn't their traumatized veteran father. Someone who understands things I can't teach them. Someone with a motherly heart." The silence stretched between them, filled with possibilities and the ghost of old wars. Orla's taloned hand trembled slightly as she set down the ration bar. "I do not know if I can be what you need," she said finally. "Neither do I," Adam admitted, "but we've got plenty of time to figure it out. Storm's supposed to last 3 days at least." Orla's crest rose fully then, catching the shelter's light, and when she smiled, carefully, mindful of her fangs around human children, it was the first genuine expression Adam had seen from her. 3 days, she repeated. "A beginning, perhaps." "Perhaps," Adam agreed, and for the first time in 2 years, the weight on his shoulders felt just a little bit lighter. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, something new and fragile began to take root. A family not born of blood or species, but of shared loss, unexpected kindness, and the simple human truth that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your door to someone who needs shelter from their own storm. In the morning, Adam would take Orla to the administrator. There would be paperwork, questions, probably some suspicion from neighbors who still remembered the war. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, watching his daughters fall asleep against a dragon woman who hummed a lullaby in a language he didn't understand, Adam allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, they could all find what they'd been looking for. a place to belong, a reason to keep going, a family forged not in the fires of war, but in the quiet shelter of peace.